So guys, today we are here with a double header in this Freddie career. We have got the Japanese Grand Prix and the US Grand Prix in this episode. The reason why I've got to do this, it was slightly problematic. Essentially what happened, as you know in the last episode in Malaysia, prime tyres were programmed in as the ultra soft, so that basically gave us maximum grip. And unfortunately, this was exactly the same with Japan. For some reason, tracks that require medium and hard tyres, for some reason they still have the mediums, which are absolutely fine, but then the prime tyres, for some reason they're programmed in as the ultra softs. I couldn't find a fix to the problem at all. And basically another glitch is that it programmed as a 50% race to make the whole entire race a one-stop race, basically. So it was a one-stop strategy, which meant the AI would be like spinning off towards the end because their tyres would be gone, obviously, because of the ultra soft tyres. Basically the wear levels and the grip levels are still exactly the same. I know this is all a bit confusing, but hopefully it'll all go okay. So essentially this race in Japan, just to avoid anything too problematic, this race will be 25% and the Japanese Grand Prix will just be nothing too special. I'm not going to do a qualifying report or a team radio for this particular race. That will be in USA, which will be coming up in about 6 or 7 minutes time. So yeah guys, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that it can't really be done properly, but unfortunately I couldn't really sort out this issue in time. And obviously guys, it's not long now before F1 2016 comes out, and I would like to work quite hard on the finale of this series, so that's kind of also why. But it's really nothing to worry about, and we have got a really good championship on our hands as we now enter the final 4 races. So guys, on the grid in 8th position for the Japanese Grand Prix around Suzuka. Obviously, again, not the greatest qualifying, but we can see our teammate Sebastian Vettel in 5th position. We've got the 2 Williams also directly ahead of us, with the 2 McLarens directly behind us, as we are now underway for the Japanese Grand Prix here at Suzuka, getting off to a fairly decent start as we now head into Turn 1. The McLaren behind me, Fernando Alonso, we're blocking off slightly on the left-hand side as we approach Turn 1 for the first time. Bottas backing off quite considerably, but again, this Turns 1 and Turns 2 is very tight indeed, so obviously it's important not to lose a bit of a front wing that we've really got ourselves into. Freddie has really kind of made that a theme of his, and talking about losing front wings, that is Rosberg's end plate completely gone, actually making contact with basically the front left tyre on Freddie's car. Thankfully not resulting in any damage for ourselves, but that's the realistic damage mod for you. Any small bit of contact will result in an end plate loss on your front wing. So currently behind our teammate Sebastian Vettel, and overall it has been a fairly decent start, but Bottas is right on our gearbox here towards the end of the lap as we approach 130i, sniffing one up the inside, but decides to back off, and Rosberg makes an insane overtake around the outside of 130i. Despite the fact that Bottas slowed down considerably, you've got to give it to Nico there, considering the fact that he also has front wing damage, but again, he is also in the fastest car, so you can't really expect too much less from the Mercedes, and it looks as if it's a very similar situation as before. Rosberg is going to head to our outside once more around 130i. He might be able to hang it around the outside. Will he be able to do that, Nico Rosberg? In fact, we make contact actually. The rear and the front tyres on both our cars actually making contact, so we've got to see how close that was. We'll have a quick replay of it now, slowed down, and very, very close there. Thankfully not resulting in anything too major once more, but onto lap 4 now. It was a real struggle in this first stint, just didn't seem to have any downforce through this far section in Sector 1, and Nico Rosberg obviously taking advantage of that, capitalising on a mistake from Freddie, and now up into P4 he goes. Sorry, not even P4, sorry, P6 he goes. So now onto lap 7, this is when the AI began to pit in for the prime tyres, which are obviously the ultra soft tyres, and currently we have Valtteri Bottas right on our gearbox. We head into Turn 1, but thankfully Valtteri backs out of it and just thinks better of it. Obviously not worth taking a risk. Valtteri's in quite a good position right now. But onto lap 8, Lewis Hamilton pitted on the last lap, and he was about 3 seconds behind us as we started the laps. This kind of shows, guys, how this glitch has really affected proceedings. Lewis Hamilton is catching up considerably, and we stayed out until lap 8 here just to avoid any issues like we had in Malaysia, obviously, because the tyres literally went off the cliff in that race. So we didn't want that to happen again. So into the pits we go, and obviously Lewis Hamilton has dropped back that little bit more. I think that was mainly because he did try and move around the outside of us at 130R, but unfortunately for him it didn't quite work out, and he did drop back quite a few seconds, which has left him in the clutches of Daniel Ricciardo, I believe. So yeah, it really depends now. We're now on the prime tyres of the ultra soft tyres, so we should be very, very quick. But it depends. Where are we going to rejoin? Are we going to rejoin any traffic? That's the question here. So we've got to see if we're going to have a very exciting end to the race, and it looks like we will be. My word. 6 cars and even a manner, I believe, of Rio Haryanto has jumped in the pits. That's what you get by pitting 2 laps earlier and having 2 fresh laps. Two solid laps on these ultra soft tyres. That is pretty crazy to say the least. But now we're right on the back of Esteban Gutierrez. Freddie might try and move heading down into Spoon Curve. He moves to the outside line here, which it will turn to for the Spoon Curve. I think he's going to make the move on the Haas F1 car here. Esteban Gutierrez, the Mexican, up the inside, and we are ahead of Esteban Gutierrez for now. Only up to P13 though, so currently the race really hasn't gone to plan. And obviously at this point, the reason Freddie left it so late to pit in was due to the tyre wear that he probably suffered at the end. So I feel that we have made a good decision here, despite the fact we have dropped back quite considerably. But now we have Nico Hulkenberg in our clutch. He's going to try and overtake him right up his gearbox here, so hopefully we'll be able to make a move up the inside. Again, a similar move to Gutierrez, so hopefully we can make a very reminiscent move on the German here, heading down to Spoon Curve once again. We're going to the inside this time. Very, very close, very tight. We just about saving the track limits there, forcing Hulkenberg out wide. Some very, very good, proper, clean racing there between Freddie and obviously Nico Hulkenberg. The next car, of all the people, was Rio Haryanto. So on to lap 12 now, the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. It took us so long to catch up with the Mana car. And sorry, Rio, you will not be getting a point today. Freddie has just taken P10 from the Indonesian, and thankfully, we have made quite a good recovery here. But guys, that was really it in the race. I think the fact was the AI didn't really suffer with too much tyre wear. And unfortunately for Freddie and for ourselves, this has meant that we have to finish in P10, so a very poor result today. Obviously a bit of a fluky race. I do apologise for that once again, but I really couldn't do much at this situation. I am kind of limited for time, as I am probably on holiday whilst you're watching this, so I had to really pre-record episodes, and obviously I want to work as hard as I can on the finale for this series. It has been so successful, and the support does continue to come in, you know, at its high amount, so I really do appreciate that. So P10 for Freddie today, and thankfully Lewis Hamilton didn't seem to win the Grand Prix. It looks like it's Verstappen in 4th, Vettel in 5th, so where did Lewis Hamilton finish? It looks like he finished on the podium, so he probably will leapfrog us in the World Championship. So guys, obviously I will show you the championship standings at the very end of this episode once we get into the main bulk of this video, the Circuit of the Americas race, the US Grand Prix. Let's get into it. Both Sauber and Mana were eliminated in Q1 along with Renault's Jolyon Palmer. Haas had a much trickier session at their home race, only sealing 14th and 17th. Fernando Alonso, meanwhile, had an exceptional day by making it into Q3 and securing 8th place for McLaren, while the two Force Indies would line up alongside each other. Carlos Sainz Jr. got the better of teammate Kvyat by scraping into Q3. Williams, meanwhile, had mixed emotions on each side of the garage. Daniel Ricciardo excelled through Sector 1, resulting in 3rd on the grid, while Ferrari would have to settle for 4th and 6th. It was Nico Rosberg who outshone his teammate to pole at Circuit of the Americas. The qualifying pace simply wasn't there, but confidence remained high after the long run pace suggested that Ferrari could seriously challenge Mercedes for the race victory. It is now time for the US Grand Prix.
Okay, use the long run into turn 1 to grab some positions. Come on, mate.
So guys, of course, the long run up the hill into turn 1, we need to try and grab some positions from P6 yesterday in qualifying. We got Vettel starting directly ahead of us with Nico Rosberg on pole position, as we are underway now for the US Grand Prix here at the Circuit of the Americas, getting off to a very good start, really closing in on Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo as we approach turn 1, diving up the inside of everybody, and Freddie Gray is into the lead of the US Grand Prix after turn 1. Just saw a gap up the inside which was left wide open, and Freddie took full advantage of that, and he is now in the lead of the US Grand Prix. So what an absolutely amazing start, just what he wanted really, to obviously get ahead of his championship rival Lewis Hamilton, who made an equally good of a start, leapfrogging his teammate Nico Rosberg into turn 1. But now later on onto the back straight here into turn number 12, Lewis Hamilton's going to try and hang one around the outside, but Freddie has the inside line, which makes it a lot easier to defend, and Lewis Hamilton is going to have to wait it out here just that little bit longer. Sebastian Vettel is currently in 3rd, so after his poor initial getaway, Sebastian Vettel has made up some ground. On to lap 4 now. We do set the fast lap of the Grand Prix. Freddie Gray pretty much at this point had no real challenge from Hamilton. The gap kind of stabilised at about a second, but the gap was really just too much, and it was just about the point where Hamilton could not get DRS on Freddie, which meant that the first stint was pretty easy, and it was one of the best that Freddie had probably had this season. The car just felt really, really tuned up well for this Circuit of the Americas track, a good balance between downforce and straight line speed. But now into the pit lane here for our first stop of the day on lap number 8. We've also got Nico Rosberg, and I believe Daniel Ricciardo also following Freddie in as well. It's another set of option tyres to go on the car today. Are we going to be held up at all? I don't think we are, and we are back out ahead of both Ricciardo and thankfully Nico Rosberg. Now the job is just to put in some solid lap times just to ensure we remain ahead of Lewis Hamilton and obviously our teammate Sebastian Vettel. Not going to rejoin any traffic, I believe. We've got Valtteri Bottas just up the road, but I doubt we'll catch him up before the end of this lap when he's due into pit. So on to lap 10 now. We've got two cars leaving the pit lane. That is Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton, we obviously jump him due to getting that undercut on him. So the gap is probably about the same, if not a little bit larger, about 1.5 seconds as opposed to a second. So half a second gain there. But on to lap 12 now. The pace of Hamilton and all the other guys in this stint was pretty monstrous, to be fair, and he really stepped it up a gear for this stint. So Freddie's going to be under quite a lot of pressure here, as it does look as if Sebastian Vettel has dropped back a little bit to P5. So obviously Vettel may have got a little bit held up, or he has lost a bit of ground, especially to Daniel Ricciardo's. We've got Lewis Hamilton just behind you. That's actually lost a bit of time. He actually made a bit of a mistake there, look by the looks of it, into turn number 11. Now he's under pressure from his teammate Rosberg. So can Rosberg make a move around the outside of his teammate? It looks like he does. It looks like Rosberg is helping out Freddie in this championship quite considerably. Freddie does run wide, and Rosberg just about avoiding contact with the rear of Freddie's car. So thankfully, nothing too major there between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. But Rosberg onto the beginning of lap 13, up the hill into turn 1. He's going to try one around the outside, but Freddie does defend it well once more. But again, the two Mercedes cars battling it out once more. Lewis Hamilton looks as if he's going to go around the outside of his teammate, and he does so. The Brit is now up into second place, and he's back to probably going to be challenging Freddie once more. As we skip a little bit later on onto the back straight once more on lap 13. We've got Hamilton, Rosberg, Ricciardo and Vettel right behind us, and once again the two Mercedes cars battling it out nose to tail. But obviously their aim here is to try and get a double slipstream on Freddie, which they're managing to do so. Freddie's going to try and block off Nico Rosberg here, which may allow Sebastian Vettel to go around the outside, the pair of them there. And now, brilliantly, it's a Ferrari 1-2. So very, very clever driving there from Freddie Gray to try and block off the two Mercedes cars. And that's allowed Vettel to go around the outside of both of them. So brilliant, brilliant stuff there. 1 and 2 currently for Ferrari. So great, great teamwork there. So now, to the end of lap 13, onto the beginning of lap number 14, we've got Sebastian Vettel right on our gearbox here. Well, not right on our gearbox, but he does have the DRS, and behind, lots of other cars do seem to go in side by side. Ricciardo, Hamilton, Vettel and Rosberg. But it looks as we do lock up into the first corner, and it looks as if there's been some sort of incident behind, and I think that was a safety car as we go into the replay shot here.
Okay, safety car deployed. Seb and Ricciardo have crashed.
So Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel have crashed, and my goodness me, that was absolutely huge. We go into the slow motion camera here, and how Lewis Hamilton didn't really get affected by that at all is beyond me. How he didn't make contact. Rosberg made contact with the rear tyre, and he also lost a bit of his end plate as well by hitting Sebastian Vettel's car. So unbelievably, both Mercedes cars are still in the race, and just to make things even more tastier, raindrops are beginning to fall here in Texas.
The intensity of rain is expected to increase in the next 2 minutes, so box at the end of lap 17.
So the rain is expected to increase in intensity over the next 2 minutes. So at this moment in time, it's not quite time to go on the intermediate tyres. There's no point risking it just yet, and obviously it'll take the tyres time to warm up and get into the optimum temperature zone to, perform as well as possible. So there's no point trying to risk it now. It's best to wait until the track wettens up that little bit more. So hopefully we can take advantage of that as we do bunch up the field there, basically doing everyone's job for them by bunching up the field as much as possible. But now we are on the restart here, skipping on to the next lap 17, as you can see, as expected, as the race engineer did confirm. My goodness me, the rain is really beginning to fall now. So intermediate tyres, it will be on this lap. We're starting to lose temperature on the dry tyres, and the cars behind are considerably catching up, like Lewis Hamilton right on our gearbox now. But the only issue is here that I think lots of other cars will be pitting in, so let's hope we don't get held up in the box too much. So we're coming into the pit lane now. The two Mercedes cars are also following us in, so they'll obviously be double stacking, which would obviously make sense. It's probably worth losing time in the pit stops than staying out on track and probably losing even more time, probably around 30 to 40 seconds even. So onto the intermediate tyres we go, and are we going to be held up? Yes, it does look like it, and I think Lewis Hamilton has actually managed to find a gap and rejoin, but Freddie is stuck in his pit box. Look at all the cars passing by. We can't quite see them, but my goodness me, look, there's Gutierrez, Massa, Haryanto, Magnussen, Ericsson, and I think Rosberg's going to jump him as well if we're not careful here, and I think he has done, and it looks as if we're now down to P17.
Okay, we're really sorry about that, mate. It was jam-packed in the pit lane, and we had to wait for the Williams guys to sort themselves out.
So essentially, also the jam-packed pit lane, and also the fact that the Williams cars ahead were also double stacking, so we're waiting for Valtteri Bottas, I believe, to go into the pit box. But now look at this, we're stuck in a right train here, and the rain is continuing to fall, so it won't even be long until we're going to go on the wet tyres. So perhaps it could be time to risk something here, but due to the fact we're in this huge traffic jam. And despite Freddie making a move here up the inside of Nico Rosberg in turn 13, he decided at this point that perhaps rather than wasting time in this traffic, the rain was only ever going to get worse at this point. It was looking like that anyway. Even though it was a shower, we thought it would perhaps be worth going onto the wet tyres and just gaining a little bit of time, seeing whether it would work out like that or not, as we do make a move round the outside of Roman Grosjean before the Istanbul turn 8-esque section of corners. So now behind Fernando Alonso, we will be pitting in at the end of this lap for a set of wet tyres. Freddie made this call himself, so we're going to have to see whether it all works out. It's going to be a very risky call, this one, because at this current moment in time, Lewis Hamilton's absolutely storming away out front. Obviously, he did benefit from that intermediate or dry intermediate crossover where he was able to find a gap between all the cars filtering into the pit lane, and he is absolutely storming out in front. So in terms of the championship, Freddie's going to have to take every risk possible. It will either work out or completely fail. It's one of those situations, and currently it doesn't seem as if the risk has worked out. We're currently under pressure from Esteban Gutierrez going down Freddie's inside here into turn number 11. He is backing off though, and the tyres just don't seem to really have any grip.
Okay, we see a clear patch appearing on the radar. Rain should be stopping within the next few laps.
So a clear patch has been identified on the radar, and it looks as if it will be hitting the track within the next few laps. In other news, Esteban Gutierrez is going around Freddie's outside, a phrase I'd never thought I'd use throughout this career mode, but he does back off Esteban Gutierrez, but Freddie runs wide, which will allow Gutierrez through. Now onto lap 22, you can see here the rain has completely stopped now, and the rest of the cars seem to now be coming in for wet tyres, which is very strange to see, seeing as the rain has basically stopped now. And it won't be too long before we go onto the intermediate tyres. We make a move around the outside of Massa into turn 2, and that was a brilliant move actually, but we're still in P10 though, so the risk hasn't perhaps worked out as we wanted. We have gained a few positions, but ultimately it hasn't worked out too well. Now we're on to the intermediate tyres on lap 23 as the safety car has come out for yet another crash here.
Alright, we have a drive-through penalty for crossing the white line.
Well, that just makes this race 10 times worse than what it should have been. This is what happened. You can see on lap 19 when Freddie came in for the wet tyres, he crossed over the white pit exit line, and as you can see, indicated by the lap there, we got a drive-through penalty. So according to the game, the safety car is due in on this lap. Look at the skies, it is pretty much blue skies now, and the track could draw out completely before the end of the Grand Prix, making things very interesting. And this will obviously be the lap where Freddie will serve. It's perhaps a little bit unfair of a drive-through penalty, to be honest with you, just very much crossing over the white line, not really gaining him any time at all, but rules are rules at the end of the day, and he's just got to accept it. Looks like this weekend is really going downhill, and it's just one to forget yet again in this series. These two races so far, Japan and USA, have not gone to plan whatsoever, but obviously still 3 laps to go and still things could happen. But now guys, watch what happens as we exit the pit lane. The safety car for some reason has been deployed again. I've got absolutely no idea what has caused this at all, but for some reason, if this did happen once the safety car was out, Freddie would have been disqualified from the Grand Prix. As you can see, obviously you're not allowed to serve drive-through penalties during the safety car period, so it was really odd to me how as soon as we entered the pit lane, as soon as the speed limiter came on, the safety car came back out. So essentially we kind of cheated our way back into P13.
The safety car will remain out until the end of lap 27. There's still debris to be cleared.
So take that what you will. Apparently the safety car needs to come back out again. Debris still hasn't been cleared from the previous crash. And now onto lap 27. I think this is now the lap that the safety car will come in, and it will be one final lap dash. But the interesting thing is here, and as you saw then, Freddie has selected option tyres for this final lap because a dry line is very much appearing and all water has basically evaporated in the last 6 or 7 laps. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether the other cars decide to pit in as well. Freddie is certainly pitting in on this lap for a set of option tyres because the intermediate tyres will definitely not last. And actually, this is very intriguing. The top 6 have decided not to pit in for the dry tyres. They have stayed out. They're going to risk it for a biscuit and stay on the intermediate tyres, while all the other cars from 7th to 17th are going on the option tyres for this final lap of the US Grand Prix. My goodness me, what a final lap this could be if we can all catch up. It is currently Nico Rosberg, and I believe it's actually a Sauber that's in the effective lead of this dry car pack here, we'll kind of call it that. So I think it's Felipe Naz that's currently in the lead of this dry car pack, followed by Nico Rosberg, followed by Freddie, and then Felipe Massa. So this is going to be very tense indeed. We've got to try and catch up with these guys. They must be struggling because look, the track is virtually dry right now. The intermediate tyres got to be low on temperature right now, so catching up the top 6 shouldn't be much of an issue. And as you can see, they're literally literally right there on the back straight. Felipe Nasr will be the first car to approach these guys, followed by Nico Rosberg and obviously Freddie Gray, and then Felipe Massa. But I think Rosberg, it actually seems quite close to Nasr, so Rosberg may actually make a move on this back straight here, heading down to turn 12. You can probably just about see when Freddie's on board shot here. It looks as if Rosberg's lining him up, bearing down him. He's going to try one around the outside as Nico Rosberg, and I think Rosberg has just about got that position at the expense of the Sauber. Now later on into sector 2, as we go down the inside of Julian Palmer, the first guy in the intermediates, and also Felipe Nasr as well. He's obviously on the dry tyres but struggling to get past his former GP2 rival there. But now, as you can see, we are now approaching the end of the lap. This is quite incredible right now. Rosberg's being held up by the looks of it by a force India. Nico Hulkenberg, we're going to overtake him, and now we have Verstappen and Massa ahead of us. I think Hamilton is still currently leading as we now enter the final corner. We've overtaken both Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas, and we are going to come through for second place here on the most hectic final lap I have ever witnessed.
I've never seen a final lap so hectic. But anyway, 2 races to go now. Let's win this championship.
My word, well, that is what a mod can do for you on this game. That is unbelievable how all of that has shaped up what was an absolutely tense, incredible, thrilling final lap, where as you could see, Lewis Hamilton still winning, so unfortunately not great for the World Championship. Lewis Hamilton increasing his lead even further. Bottas finished him third on the podium. Rosberg in the end with 4th, with Nasr in 7th, with Fernando Alonso just about picking off some cars towards the end of the Grand Prix in 9th position. So guys, these are obviously the championship standings after USA and obviously the Japanese Grand Prix earlier on. Lewis Hamilton unfortunately outscored Freddie Gray in both those races, which means the gap is actually quite a large margin, 16 points now. So unfortunately, that does mean, because now we're approaching the final 2 races, Lewis Hamilton could win in Brazil if he wins and Freddie Gray finishes in 4th or lower. That's the permutations there. So that isn't great. That isn't great. Basically, Freddie needs to beat Lewis Hamilton in the final 2 races. Now in the Constructors, Mercedes have also closed the gap as well. Over the course of these 2 races, Mercedes have significantly closed it once more, but the most important thing is that Ferrari do still lead the Constructors Championship. No real other major changes apart from down in 10th position, where Sauber, thanks to Felipe Nasr's 7th place finish, now moved up onto a total of 8 points. They've now moved ahead of Manor up into 10th place. Guys, if you have enjoyed today's doubleheader episode, that absolutely thrilling US Grand Prix, then be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe if you are new to the channel, leave a comment down below, and guys, it's the final 2 races now in this Freddie Gray career mode. Brazil and Abu Dhabi. It's going to be good, a tense, thrilling ending to this season, and yes, I will see you next time. Bye bye.